Thank you, Chris. That was great. So I would now like to welcome on stage the panel for this afternoon. Amit and Chris, if you could come back and join us on the stage. Joining them is Philip Waddle, International Sales Manager of Telestack. He's been involved with the export of equipment to India in the mining and port sector for the last 15 years and has worked with some of the largest blue chip Indian companies such as JSW, Jindal Steel, Adani, as well as government sectors such as Inland Waterways Authority of India. The panel will be moderated by my colleague Sai Kiran, who is the regional manager for India and is based in Mumbai. Thank you.
Thank you, Swati, and thanks to all the speakers. We've heard great facts and information about why Indian market is important. Now we will delve into a bit of a few nuances about what it takes to do business in India. Without taking much time, I would like to start off. If I can ask Phil, if you could introduce yourself and your company.
I work for a company called Telestack. We're located in County Tyrone. We specialise in manufacture of mobile bulk material handling solutions. We currently have a workforce approximately 220 people spread over 2 manufacturing facilities located on the outskirts of Omagh. In 2022, we had a turnover of approximately £40 billion, and we have aggressive growth strategies to increase that over the next number of years. We have a new production facility in process, which will be factories by the end of the year, other than an estimate of approximately £6 billion. As a company, we are 92% export orientated, and so not a lot in the internal market, and our focus is purely on developing export markets throughout the world. Major markets for us include North America, Africa, Australia, and Europe as well. As a business, we cater for 3 main sectors. Firstly, the ports and terminal sector, and this equipment is mainly customised and tailor-made for individual applications. The second sector that we target is mining, so this can be standard range equipment or again customised. And the third area that we sell into is the mooring sector. This is mainly standardised products and higher outputs and sort of volume production. So that's just a little bit about our company.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Thanks for the introduction. My first question would be to Philip Waddle. Phil, if you can tell us why Telestack looked at entering the Indian market. What was your initial journey like when you actually entered the market, started exporting your machines to the market? If you could throw us some light on that.
Yeah, so we entered the Indian market probably at around the mid-2000, 2007, 2008. At that time, India and it still does have extremely high volumes of material, either mining, whether it's iron ore or other metals that are mined within the country, or the increasing volume of coal-fired power plants that are in India. The volume of coal and water in India is massive. So we, from a strategic point of view, there was massive opportunities there, and we entered into the market. We actually sold our first book in 2007, and that was into the iron ore sector in Goa. So that was partial lake equipment, which was mine that was export or transiting through the Mandovi and the Ziari River in Goa down to Marmagoa Port, and we have built our business off the back of that. The markets that we target are only the mining sector and the ports and terminal sector. We do not target foreign sector or standardised products. We focus on unique products. We focus on targeted segments because we need to sell your USP and set ourselves apart. If we try to compete on the price in India, then it's not going to happen. So in the future, we're moved away from road transportation and we're talking about net zero. And, we see a future of any inland transportation of materials throughout we have done projects on the Ganges. Again, in Goa, there's a big push for inland waterways. So we believe that it's supply equipment to that sector.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. My next question is for Amit. Amit, you visited some of the food and drink companies yesterday. With your experience of dealing with international brands, what would be your suggestion of a best platform or a distribution strategy for food companies looking to enter India?
See, what we need to understand with the Indian market is that what, Chris just mentioned that India is not just a country. It's like a continent with many countries. The language is different, the diaspora is different, the eating habits are different. What you need to understand is what your product target is. The 3 companies that we visited yesterday did well. Parish is the company that one of them was a snacks company which was doing extruded snacks. Now, extruded snacks in India are okay. It's a cheap commodity for Indians because it's not a technology which is unique to any country. We just buy the technology, put the pellets and it extruded. But what these guys were doing was something unique. What they were doing is they were catering to a segment and they have found out a niche for themselves. First, they were trying to cater to the kids segment. When it comes to kids, babies, people don't think about money. It's about quality, packaging. The material has to feel safe, and the culture of it has to be safe. So their packaging was quite unique. Their packaging was talking quality, and also they were going towards organic, protein, all the buzzwords which are working now. Since COVID, what we've seen is if you put these kind of acronyms, vegan, free food, organic, these are acronyms of buzzwords which are working across the spectrum. People are willing to pay anywhere between 20 to 100% and more for the same category of conventional food. So that is the same in India as well. When you want to visit India, when you want to target an Indian audience, make sure that you know where your product stands. We have multiple websites. Go on Amazon.in or Big Baskets. You can go there and look for a similar product which you're already selling or producing or wanting to export in India. Do a price comparison, and Indian is willing to pay at least 3 to 4 times of what they are buying as an Indian product for them internationals, especially coming from UK or Scotland. So you have that advantage. India has great relationship with UK, so that gives you that advantage of quality, the assurance. The resonance of British brand is considered quite high in India. So I think you can cash from that and use a marketing strategy or a tool to make sure that you have success in the long run with finding the right buyer. Because that is also a key. He is going to tell you one of the daily requirements, which port he is going to import to, which cities that he's going to cover, what is the type of distribution network that we have. Because in India, you have a very wide distribution network. You cannot sit in one place and say, I have offices across India and I will cover the entire country. So what you need to rely on is local distribution, and that is going to make sure the success of your brand is it.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. My next question is for Chris. Chris, can you highlight some of the do's and don'ts for first-time exporters in a vastly diverse market like India?
Yeah, I think I'm really very different for talking about India than talking about any country, to be honest. It's always really simple. It's all do your research, understand your market. Don't think that just because you've got a product that sells in the UK, that automatically went out of that new market. If famously, when I was in China, Marks & Spencer's came into China, they thought if we bring all of our products in the UK straight into China, exactly as they are, we're perfect. It didn't. It's a complete failure, and we have to change it around and then adapt to that market. To understand that market, and then, as we mentioned before, realising India that it is, it's just huge in terms of the number of different states, all with very particular areas. So if we do a bit like Europe, you're very different from France to Italy to Greece, different foods, different climates, different cultures, even different languages in that essence. So yeah, so in terms of the key things, think of India as those different areas. Also, really important is to find a right partner. Do your due diligence on them. I'd call this Weeford organization. They provide green and generators, and they've been approved by a company in India that says if you take that and produce it into 3 parts, bring it into India, don't have to pay any import duties. That's not quite right. So they came to us, we can do the due diligence after to tell them if that's true or not. So take that advice and guidance, and as I said before, there's lots on it. Whether that's investor in Rhode Island, whether that's DET, Invest India, please take as much free advice and guidance as you can. I think we'll see you guys, your son was following, but support you.
Thanks, Chris. Nicely summed up. Next question is for Philip Varden. Philip, if you could tell us about what worked for you in India and what didn't work for you in India in your long journey in exporting to India.
Okay, thanks. I'm probably not going to reiterate a lot of what Chris has just said here, so apologies that poetry, apologies if I'm sounding a bit competitive here. Look, from our experience, and obviously you've been in India a long time, you've got pitfalls along the way. As Chris said, probably the most important factor is to find the right partner. At the start of our journey, we partnered up with actually a Tata company, a very respectable company, and they were excellent on paper, and it felt right, but in all honesty, they were just too big a company to focus on our products. So whilst it was right on paper, we probably lost for a couple of years in India because we just didn't gel with the right partner. In 2009, we then participated we did in-market research with the Best Lord in Ireland. We went to see about 12 to 15 different companies. We approached shortlist and listed 3, and the company we selected is still our distributor or agent today, and we have a very good working relationship. My advice would be to spend time and energy. A lot of, it sounds like a very simple, logical thing to do, but spend the time and energy in dedicating your time to get the right partner in India. As Chris alluded to earlier there as well, once you set up a partner, you can't just walk away. In the initial stages, for the first probably 5-10 years, 5 years anyway, we will be visiting India 3 to 4 times a year and spending time with your partner, spending a lot of time there. And basically, India is such a large, diverse country. Until you see it, you wouldn't believe it. So, but you need to spend the time and energy in any country and build that relationship and increase the level of self-reliance for the partner. So, basically you get out of it what you put into it. So our levels business would have dropped over the recent years, obviously because of COVID. But as you build it up, they tend to make more self-reliant. The second thing I would say is, again, reiterating your point about what Chris is saying about tailoring to suit the Indian market. Chris gave examples of Morris Spencer's there, and from our perspective, we do not offer all of our products in India. We are very selective and focused on the key markets that best represent us and give us the best opportunity to sell equipment. Not all of our products are going to be successful in India, and you need to focus on the ones which are the right USPs, the right, forte of what you really want to sell in India, what you want to do there. We are in the business of tailoring and customized parts anyway, but you probably will need to tweak your product slightly for the Indian market. Doesn't matter whether it's a food product or an industrial sale like we're doing. We have found that in the project work, it's very important to get in early. So a lot of our distributors' work is about awareness of our product, educating the market, and so that when the tender comes out or when a project comes up, well, there's a lot of thousand infrastructure projects coming up in India, but when the tender comes out, you're in at the early stages, you have a much better chance of success if you're in at the early stages as opposed to coming in during the later stages. Other things we have found in the Indian market, currently there was a change in the laws last year about bank guarantees. So typically with our products, we will have bank guarantee, whether in form of a funds bank guarantee or performance bank guarantee after the equipment is installed. There was banking changes there last year. Normally, bank guarantee will be valid for 1 year plus 30 days claim period. That has changed now that it's standard bank guarantee is 1 year, and they have a claim period of a further year. So from a cash flow perspective, from a soft cost perspective, those are costs that have to be factored in when you're doing business in India if you have to provide bank guarantees. Same goes for letter of credit. Doesn't matter whether it's just there or any other parts of the world. We will always stipulate, certain number of days for the contract signing to have a mutually agreed letter of credit, but we have been some issues with that in the past. And finally, I would say about negotiation. Indians are, without a doubt, the best negotiators and the best buyers in the world, whether it's down to terms and conditions of a contract or with pure negotiation on price. Our typical process would be a 1 or 2 day technical discussion followed by a full day's commercial discussions, and they're very good at it. So make sure you have a good stamina, and wish all of you all the best if you're entering the market at the end of it. Hopefully our experience has been useful to you.
Thank you, Philip. I'm being reminded that we're currently running a little behind the schedule. So I would like to open the questions to the audience, and my apologies to cut short the panel discussion. Claire, if you could just, in audience question time, feel free to ask any questions.
We should have prayed. We've done such a good job in the presentation.
One person started the no take how
Hi, thank you all for your contributions. So my question here is primarily related to you, Ahmed, on intellectual property and trademarks. You talked us about the food reviews and entrepreneurship in terms of Indians learning from UK and selling and producing labels. How are you finding food and drink companies sort of protecting themselves through intellectual property market access barriers?
Thank you so much. It's very simple. Before you enter the country, because we have the law to present, always good to have your trademark registered in the country. Once you have your trademark registered, it is not a problem. Nobody is going to replicate what will make it your product. And even if someone does, in the long run, what you should do is you send them a notice and normally they back off very fast forward. It's not a big challenge. Unless the company has not registered the brand, and then it does become a challenge. Because they believe that they have it registered in their whole country or the manufacturing state, it doesn't matter. I mean, I have to register the brand in the country, and practices are going to be easy.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. Next question, anyone?
You were breaking the diet.
That made it more fantastic a little bit more maybe because the initiative of the basis of that or other factors.
Yes, sir. Obviously, as a government policy, it's part of Mr. Modi's key areas around creating these jobs. So, looking at opportunities to partner with lots of changes around culture and manufacturing. What is the new business plan, sorry?
and the best ornament.
All right. So manufacturers seem to be this is cognizant of the fact that there is this here, but it is a protectionist policy. You know, that's never to solve that. So there are quite a fine tariff barriers, but that comes down to understanding your due diligence. You go out there. So if you are really involved with very little competition, like Philips at the Craigslist, then you will be able to absorb that tariff as part of that. If it's not, then you might have to look at alternatives like setting up a establishment. Over in India, there's lots of incentives, but that's in the special economic zones that we're spoken about before. I think Helen alluded to the story of JCB, fantastic opportunity where they went out, set up one factory, probably as part of a cost-cutting drive. Actually then realised that it was such a huge market that they went to 2 factories. Then they started selling into the Middle East from India, and then they started selling to Salvador. Big Asia now went to 6, 7 factories over India. Rolls-Royce, as I say, then I'm winning big contracts over India. So I guess they've always was about that around exporting, and as Fred mentioned, you've got to be able to compare it to the country, understand what your competition is within that country, and then not be afraid to walk up one's incentives. There are these words, and your business, or your business, this is not how they're displacing the jobs from the UK to India. This is about creating products either in the market, utilizing your skills, your knowledge, and taking advantage of those opportunities that exist there.
Thanks, Chris. Any further questions?
And we import China. So we debated in it plus is there. Could it make these less China or better plans like that? And the second was if India is so big today, should we look at to put it into Maharashtra to come out of the state and government did. So would that be a better way?
So on the bit of China, so India is trying to compete with China and doing that by custom tariffs or key areas, say civil markets, for instance. Huge, vast civil market created all over India, and the government recently really rounds up the tariffs on the importation of solar panels to stimulate an indigenous market and at the same time creating production incentives for local businesses to actually start to generate within India. He did the same with electronics. So there's a famous story about Samsung going and the screens and some challenges around being able to import their streets and replicate the production facilities in China to be India. And so there is a competition that's happening, and we'll be able to see there is no loss at the moment between China and India as well. So that India was like to buy from India as well. So there is that's becoming more clear as well in the government's trust it.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We have time for one last question. Anyone around?
Hi, this is Greg. Well, just for what you said there about percent or bespoke to market, how do you protect your IT or the spot? And is there a chance that we've cleaned in the RC and you made these colors trying to replicate what you're doing in market?
Suppose it is no different than any other part of the world that, in terms of IP protection, we do have a number of patents that are applicable, but again, the cost of patent and IP protection is very expensive. So, look, the particular products we're selling in here are quite a niche sector. Volumes aren't really that high that there is local competition everywhere that you go, but we try to sell ourselves on quality and our ability to, tailor make solutions for the customer. So IP protection is difficult. Patents to a certain extent do protect it, but you can't mitigate that risk. So we just, it is there, and you just have to sort of deal with it as it comes along,
Yeah, thanks, Philip. If there are no further questions, I would like to wrap up the session. Thanks to all the panel members, and special thanks to Alan, for being part of this session. I hope you all had some good insights about the India market, and it was good to hear from all the experts in a short span of time about what's the market size about, what's the best way forward to do business in India. In conclusion, I hope you all had some valuable insights. I think few key points for me. India is a large market and a growing market, so the scale to grow is huge. The growing middle class, which was emphasized by both Chris and Amit, I think that's one of the key drivers for the economy. There is also an increasing appetite for international brands across the country. India is scaling its infrastructure, as Alan mentioned, and it needs to maintain the pace of the economy. And obviously that also again provides opportunities for companies across the spectrum. Just to give a quick figures, India is going to have 80 new airports in the next 5 years. There are projects happening across 400 seaports lined up for the next 10 years, both redevelopment and modernization of seaports. So I think that the other key challenges with respect to the market, well laid out by the panelists, was the understanding of the local business culture and the regulatory environment. I think the best way forward would be to engage with your local partners. Take your time, identify your local partners, and develop a comprehensive market entry strategy, which can kind of overcome all your challenges in entering diverse markets such as India. I encourage all the companies to explore the opportunities in India and leverage the kind of support and resources available within Invest.NI. I'm based out of Mumbai. My colleague Sonali, we both are based out of Mumbai, and we are here for the next couple of days. So feel free to reach out to us if you have queries about understanding more about the market. If you want to know a bit more about the opportunities out there in India, feel free to reach out to us. Lastly, thank you to all of you. Thanks for your time and attention. I wish all of you success in your endeavor. Thank you.